Hey BG soulmates, welcome or welcome back again to my channel. I am Grace, and in today's video I'll be showing you how I made this wide leg trousers using my sewing pattern, which you can get using the link or links in the description box below. So this trouser was made using an African wax print or a cotton fabric, and the second one was made using a crepe fabric, which was slightly stretchy. And I said in the recommendations that you would want to make this using a woven fabric, and which I didn't do when making the black one because it was slightly stretchy, but I honestly do not recommend. But you could play around with it and see what works for you. And when making this trouser, you want to use light to medium weight fabric like linen, cotton, crepe, satin would also work, or any other fabric that you feel like you'd want to experiment with. So this trouser has a few features which I love. It has a waistband which is about 1.1 to 1.5 inch wide. It has a full button on the side. It has double pleats on both sides and front. It has a slash pocket, and the pockets, as usual, my pockets are always deep enough. And it has a back dart, and one of the things I love as well is the invisible zip at the back for people who feel intimidated when it comes to making fly zipper like me. And yeah, I would say this is between advanced, beginner to intermediate. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So listed on the top right of the screen are some of the materials you would need when making this trouser, okay? Starting off with the front, I'm going to mark the wrong side using a chalk, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I could barely tell the difference between the front and the back for this. After doing that, you're going to want to create your pleats. So in order for you to do this, you want to make sure you transfer or mark your notches at the top right there. And in order for you to create your pleats, you'd want to align the notches together, as you can see me do in the video. Once you're done aligning it, you're just going to have the excess fabric facing towards the side of the trouser and not the center front. That is how I recommend it for this trouser, but obviously if you prefer your pleats facing towards the center of your trouser, then you can go ahead and do that, okay? But I personally prefer mine, or I preferred mine for this particular fabric pattern rather, facing towards the side. And after doing that, you're just going to iron everything down, and this creates your pleats properly and just makes it stay in place, okay? After doing that, you're just going to pretty much stitch or stitch down those pleats to just prevent it from moving around using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. When creating your back dart, you want to draw a line from two lines from the top or the waist down to the end of the dart. But in my case right now, I'm going to just fold it into two, making sure that the notches are aligned, and this is what it will look like. Then you can just trace all the way from the top to the bottom of where the dart is supposed to stop. I find this easier for me to do, and you're just going to sew it from the top to the bottom, or if you do prefer sewing from the bottom to the top, then that is totally fine as well. I like to just knot the end when I get there rather than back stitching, but some people say they like back stitching because it works well for them, and I've tried it and it actually works. But I'm so used to just creating knots rather than back stitching when making my darts. So yeah, after doing that, just ironing everything down in place. So now for the front fabric, you're going to place right sides together, and you're going to sew from the top to the crotch area, just like as indicated in the video. And when you're sewing, you're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance in doing so. After doing that, I'm just going to iron everything down. I always love ironing down my projects as I go. It just makes the work neater. So what I like to do is I like to iron the wrong side first, then I iron the right side afterwards. So to close up the back, you're going to place right sides together like so, and from the waist you're going to measure down. You measure 8 inches down, or how many inches you want your zip to be, and pin from there, and just sew right from there to the crotch area. And I measured 8 inches like I said, but depending on your own preference, you could make it shorter or longer. So now we're going to sew the pockets to the front side. So we're going to start off by placing the pocket facing, placing the right side of the pocket facing to the right side of the front trousers, and pinning everything down. And you want to make sure that you create a notch, because that notch there is where you're going to stop sewing at. And you could also mark it, which is what I did as well. And when you're sewing, you're going to sew from the waist and stop where the notch was created, and just backstitch there. After doing that, you're just going to create a notch again if it wasn't properly created, which was pretty much this in my case. After doing that, you're going to understitch the pocket facing to the seam allowance. So after doing that, I'm just going to iron everything down, and this is what it looks like. Then you're just going to place the pocket facing and the pocket facing and the front fabric together, having wrong sides facing each other, and you're just going to either pin it down or baste it. And after doing that, you're just going to iron it down in place. And the reason why I am doing this is because I want it to lay flat and neat. So after you're done ironing everything with the pin still there, you're going to place the outer pocket piece to the pocket facing, having right sides facing each other, and sew as indicated in the video using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And after you're done sewing everything, your pocket or your trouser should look like this. Okay, so now that you're done sewing the pocket facing and the outer pocket piece together, you're just going to pin the pocket pieces to the front trouser pieces at the waist side, and as well as at the side seam, just to prevent it from moving when you decide to sew both the front and the back pieces together. So now, in order for you to sew both the front and the back pieces together, you're going to place right sides facing each other, as you can see in the video, pin the side seams and the inseam together in place, then sew it down using the 1/2 inch seam allowance. When sewing your inseam, you might notice that one side is longer than the other. Do not bother about that. You just stretch it out and sew it down. That's all you need to do. You don't need to trim anything off. Okay, so now we're going to sew the waistband. So for the main waistband, you're going to have 2 pieces like this, which you'd want to attach, because remember, this is pretty much like if you're going to have like a full button in front. And yeah, in order for me to have the full button in front, I needed to know where I would want to place that. So what you're going to do is to fold it into having right sides facing each other, and so using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to just top stitch one side to the seam allowance. Then after doing that, the next step is to fuse an interface into the waistband facing, like you can see me do in the video. So after doing that, the next step is to sew the waistband facing to the waistband itself, having right sides facing each other. But before you do that, you're just going to pin everything down in place depending on your preference. So for this one right here, I prefer pinning it down before sewing. Then I'm just going to sew one side like that using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So after doing that, you're just going to iron everything down, having both the waistband facing and the main waistband itself facing up, and just ironing everything down. And after doing that, you're just going to fold it like so, having the wrong sides facing each other, and iron as well. This is just to keep everything in place and just make the whole sewing process easy for me and hopefully for you. And after doing that, you're going to fold the edge of the waistband facing inwards using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to pin it down all through, and after you're done pinning everything, you're just going to iron it down in place to prevent it from to just have the mark and just have it looking neat. So now that that is done, we're going to attach the waistband to the trouser. So what you're going to do is to attach the waistband itself to the waistline of the trouser, having right sides facing each other, and you're just going to pin everything down and sew it using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So when I'm pinning it down, I like to pin both edges first, then I pin the rest. It just makes the whole work easier for me. So after sewing it, you're just going to iron it as well, and this is what you have. Okay, so now we're going to attach the zip to the back of the trouser, but prior to doing that, we're going to just iron the zip to have the teeth properly open to just make it easier when sewing your invisible zip. And once you're done ironing it down, you're going to place the right side of your invisible zip to the right side of the fabric and just baste it. I find basting easier for me to do than just pinning it down, because basting prevents the zipper from moving around when I sew, as opposed to when I use a pin. So I prefer basting it. So I'm going to baste one side first, then baste the other side. And when you're basting, you baste all the way to the waistband, but do not baste the waistband facing. Okay, I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. So now, like I'm showing you here, when you get to the waistband, you're just going to baste and stop at where the waistband and the waistband facing meets. Okay, and pretty much repeat the same step to the other side of the zipper and the trousers. After doing that, this is what you'll have. And next step is to just sew the zip to the trousers. So now that you're done sewing the zip to the trouser, the next step is to complete the waistband itself. So what you're going to do is going to pull the zipper to the side and just fold the waistband facing to the waistband, having right sides facing each other. Then you're just going to stitch it down using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you repeat the same step to the other side. And after you're done doing that, this is what you'll have. Then you trim off the excess fabric to prevent it from puckering when you turn it right sides out, like you can see me do in the video. So after turning everything right side out, this is what you'll have. So now we would want to close up the waistband facing, and to do that, you're going to pin the waistband facing to the waistband itself. And after pinning it down, you're going to want to stitch in a ditch. So stitch. So after pinning everything, you're just going to stitch in the ditch. So for the final step, you're going to hem your trousers. So what you'd want to do is to when hemming your trousers, you're going to use a 2-inch seam allowance, and you're just going to mark that there. For the black trouser, I went with a 2.5 inch, which I later adjusted to a 2 inch because I felt like it was too short. I wanted it long enough. Then you just pin it down, but as always I like to pin the side seams first before I pin the rest down, because it just makes everything neater and well aligned. So after pinning the side seams, then I go ahead to pin the rest of the seam allowance to the trouser. After pinning everything, this is what you'll have, and the next step is to just sew it all, and this is what it's going to look like on the wrong side of the trousers. Okay, then you sew it down, and after doing that, your trouser is pretty much done, and this is the final result. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this helpful, and if you're interested in getting this pattern, the link is going to be in the description box. And as usual, I love to have a discount code for you guys, so the discount code is going to be written on the screen right here, and it is only valid till the end of this month, which is March 2023. Okay, so thank you once again, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.